Hello and welcome, I'm Ayu Makaraig. Rappler just closed a partnership with independent media investment firm North Base Media, composed of top global journalists. But what does this mean exactly for Rappler and for you, our audience? Let's talk to Rappler CEO and Executive Editor, Maria Ressa. So Maria, this has been going around for some time now. Tech in Asia first reported it. But what exactly is this partnership with North Base Media?
I think it gives us the ability to do what we were born to do, which is when you're born on the internet, you're global to begin with, and this allows us to do that. It amplifies the values we've always had, and as you can see, we've already moved into Indonesia. This opens up the entire world to us.
So North Base Media is investing in Rappler. Can you tell us how this started and what kind of amount is involved?
Well, first, I won't tell you the amount, but let me put it this way. It is a significant amount that allows us to do much more than what we would have been able to do. North Base Media, all these three men are amazing people, amazing journalists to begin with the critical characteristic that I love, which is courage. Marcus Broccoli held 2 of the top 3 jobs in all of journalism. He was editor-in-chief of the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal, and now began this investment fund, North Base Media, that is really about helping independent media. Sure. So they believe that independence is necessary for any news group to be able to play its role in society. The other guy, Sasha Vucinic, Sasha was thrown out of the former Yugoslavia by Slobodan Milosevic. Mm-hmm. And then with seed money from George Soros, he began something that it's a fund, Media Loan Development Fund, that really helped independent media. He ran this for 16 years. And then the third guy, the triumvirate, is Stuart Carley, who is one of the top media lawyers globally. I think he actually he put Lee Kuan Yew on the stand, right? And beyond that, up until 2013, he was the COO of Reuters, in charge of safety issues, among all of the other things that a COO does. So these 3 men are like us. They're trying to redefine journalism given the technology that's changing our world. And I love that we all grew up in an old world, the discipline of journalism, the soul of journalism, but we're young enough to be able to take this technology and adapt.
So North Base Media's partnership with Rappler, if I'm a Rappler reader or a viewer, I want to know what exactly it means. What will change in terms of Rappler's content, the way it does the news, and its direction?
Nothing will change in terms of the way we are, our soul. Hopefully we get better. But in terms of the soul of Rappler, the 3 men, North Base Media, they're essentially giving us money and technology to be able to attain the vision of Rappler. They like what we've become. They like what we've built. They actually think that our business model, for example, is one among the most innovative in the world, and that's part of why they're throwing money behind it, right? But for me, again, I go back to what's important to the 3 of them. It is that journalism keep its role in society, and that we continue to hold the public and private sector accountable. I think the last point, and they'll say this themselves, if you ask them, do they have any role in the day-to-day? No, right. None.
Decisions, editorial decisions?
None. What they will do is open doors for us in markets where we are not in. They'll help us try to understand what the trends are that are going on, which we've been trying to do. They'll help us try to understand millennials, like you, the 20-somethings. You guys are a tough nut to crack. The passion of the 20-somethings and the digital natives, the way they view the world. This world is a world that is built for the consumers. Choice is in your hands. Now, how do we as journalists stay relevant to your lives? How do we get into your news stream? How do we get into your consciousness? And I think having that combination of the young and the old, the experienced and the digital natives, that's magical.
I think this announcement raises questions, again, the persistent questions about how Rappler is funded, who owns Rappler, how does Rappler make money, and perhaps this is an opportunity to address that, because for a time there are really a lot of reports, some tycoons MVP express interest in Rappler. So this is pretty new in the Philippine context, to have a media investment firm founded by journalists, funding other media, independent media globally. So could you explain that further?
So, you know, for all of the questions, we've been very transparent. You can go to the site. There's an About Rappler page. It tells you who the founders are. It tells you the groups that came in. We started this by raising money from ourselves, and you know, don't knock that, because we've been around for a long time. I mean, the 40-somethings who first began Rappler, we had run news organizations. We've worked in different parts of Southeast Asia. We headed groups, multinational. Some of them, Manny Ayala was with Discovery. Raymond Miranda was with NBC Universal. So there are lots of different experiences and money that we can bring to the table. The founders of Rappler have funded Rappler through, this is an equivalent of what VCs would say a Series A funding. It's the first time that we're bringing in outsiders, and part of the reason that we chose journalists first is precisely because we wanted to be, one, independent. It's different when you're a journalist, right? And you want to make sure that the vested interests are away, that you are doing what's right, and that you're maintaining standards and ethics.
If we could just backtrack, like how exactly did this start? You personally worked with Marcus when he was reporting out in Asia, but how did this discussion get started, and then like where do you see it going?
So about a year ago, Marcus, after he left the Washington Post, was looking at innovation. North-based media is interested in the intersection of journalism and technology, and then something Marcus calls the marketplace. I call it the crowd. Right? So we independently came to the same ideas in different ways. They announced that they were forming this fund, and I just emailed him. I said, hey, how can you form a fund and not be looking at us? And then he looked at Rappler. It was the first time he'd seen it. And he said, of course we're interested, you know. And then we began talking about it. Marcus and I covered the fall of Suharto together. We covered the financial crisis. We knew each other as young journalists in Jakarta. But even then, you know, his friends in the Wall Street Journal always said, that Marcus, he's going to head the journal someday. And that was in the late 90s, and Marcus did rise very fast. I think what's great about him is that he is a journalist's manager, which is also what I strive to be. You know, you want to enable journalism, but you need to understand the business practices that gives it its independence. If you cannot bring in money for a news group, that news group is not independent, right? I don't want to be a nonprofit right now, because I think we can do a nonprofit's work in a far more independent way and fund it ourselves by having a business model that works. And that's the other thing that I learned after they looked at Rappler. We just made it up. You know, we looked at what was available and we said, if we create something today, how would we do it? And we did. And when they looked at our business model, they said, that's really innovative. And let's do it. Let's take it outside of the Philippines. So that's what we're interested in doing.
What does this mean in terms of Rappler looking at markets outside of the Philippines?
Really doing what we were born to do anyway. Anything born in the internet is automatically global. And if you don't embrace that, then you're missing opportunities. So the first, I think, we've already moved into Indonesia, and we're going to strengthen that, partly because of our partnership with North-based media. What we want to do is to give a platform for Indonesians to be able to find what's important to them, define it together, and then help, like we're doing in the Philippines, help build institutions bottom up. So that's what we're trying to do here. So the first step is in our own region, in ASEAN. This is ASEAN. By December 2015, it's ASEAN, right? So why not? We're going to be one of those companies that's moving into ASEAN as it should be. It's time. ASEAN is coming of age, and we hope to come of age with it.
North-based media brings in investment, brings in global expertise, but what does Rappler bring to the table?
It actually is the personification of what North-based media's ideas are, which is journalism at its core, technology built in, and our audience built into that. It's a Venn diagram I always show when I talk about Rappler, but that is the triumvirate of it. Our audience, our crowd is part of us now, and trying to navigate this new landscape with technology is an incredible challenge, an extremely fun challenge. There's no better time to be a news consumer than today. We can use technology, but technology doesn't determine our editorial agenda. In the end, the discipline of journalism, that soul of journalism is even more important to society today than it ever has been. And that's what we have in common with North Base. It's trying to understand that technology is at the service of journalists, not the other way around, and that we can actually use this to help build institutions bottom up.
You talk about digital disruption, and that's really the big topic now, not just in the news industry, but in other industries as well. What do you think this partnership says about the future of news and technology, where you have legacy media struggling to remain relevant and digital native outlets also trying to have their own mark in the industry?
I think we're only seeing the beginning of the disruption. This is only the first part. It is going to get faster. Change is going to accelerate, and we're going to, in a few short years, not recognize the landscape. Everything is smashing together. And if you're not trying to think of how to reinvent yourself now, someone else will beat you to it. We've worked for large organizations, and this is the Achilles heel for large news groups. The things that made them successful in the past are the very things that prevent them from succeeding in the same way in this landscape. And let me explain that, right? In many ways, this is the death of the news anchor. This is the death of television power, of determining what reality is. Now everyone determines the reality, and when the first person at a news event is not a journalist, what does that do? When any person can take Periscope and go live, imagine that took millions of dollars for a TV news group to be able to do that before. This is a whole new landscape.
Is Rappler looking into accepting other investors? Are we just accepting global investments?
I can't tell you exactly what the future brings. I always have plans, but I'm also always willing to throw those plans away if an opportunity comes along. But we will stay true to our ideals, which is, again, you go back to journalism, the independence of journalism, to community, and to technology. Technology at the service of journalism to give a better life for the people.
Okay, exciting times for the media and exciting times for Rappler. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ayu Makaraig. Stay tuned for all things that Rappler is planning.